There's a girl I used to see every morning at a quiet gym in Chicago. Same time, same treadmill, same playlist, probably. For 3 weeks straight, she showed up just as the sun peeked over the buildings, determined, focused. Until one morning, she didn't. And the next morning, still nothing. By the following week, someone else was using her treadmill. She never came back. It's not a unique story. How many of us start a goal with fire and are chest inlaid to fade out quietly a few weeks in? We blame ourselves. We say we lack discipline. We weren't strong enough. But what if the issue isn't our willpower? What if we've misunderstood how change actually happens? You do not rise to the level of your goals, says James Clear. You fall to the level of your systems. That one sentence flips the entire idea of motivation on its head. Because maybe the problem isn't that we don't want it enough. Maybe it's that we're building our lives on foundations that can't hold us up. So let's break this down. What do systems really mean in real life? And why do so many people with big dreams still feel stuck? We tend to think of success as a matter of intensity. Push harder, wake up earlier, want it more than the next person. But real change, lasting change, isn't built on intensity. It's built on consistency. And consistency doesn't come from willpower. It comes from structure. Let me tell you about Tom. Tom is the kind of guy who watches a motivational video and immediately signs up for a 30-day challenge. Meal preps, buys supplements, sets 6 alarms for a 5:30 a.m. wake-up. Day 1, he kills it. Day 2, still going strong. Day 3, a bit slower, but he powers through. By day 7, he's tired. By day 12, he skipped 3 mornings. By the end of the month, the gym membership is just another monthly bill. Tom didn't fail because he didn't care enough. He failed because he built his new life on top of his old system. And old systems protect old habits. He didn't adjust his sleep schedule, didn't reduce late-night screen time, didn't replace energy-draining friendships or time-sucking routines. He tried to insert change into a life that was never designed to support it. Here's the hard truth. Motivation can get you started, but only a system can keep you going. Now you might ask, okay, so what exactly is a system? It's not a big life overhaul. It's the invisible infrastructure beneath your choices. It's the difference between leaving your workout clothes by the bed versus scrambling for them at 6 a.m. It's whether you place your phone across the room or sleep with it in your hand. It's whether your environment cues the person you want to be or the one you're trying to outgrow. Systems are boring. That's why no one talks about them in viral quotes. But systems are what decide whether your habits survive a bad week, a breakup, or a rainy Monday morning. We don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of what our lives are built to sustain. But let's pause for a moment. Let's say you've built a good system. You wake up early, eat well, journal, meditate. You're consistent, you're productive, you're checking every box. Why then do you still feel empty? Why do some people who do everything right still feel wrong? The problem isn't always that we don't follow through. Sometimes, the problem is that we're chasing goals that were never ours to begin with. We live in a world obsessed with self-improvement. Be more efficient, be more attractive, be more successful. And we assume that the more we optimize ourselves, the better we'll feel. But there's a subtle trap here. In trying to upgrade our lives, we often forget to ask the most important question. Do I even want this? Do I want this career or just the validation that comes with it? Do I want to look like that influencer or do I just want to feel seen? Do I want this version of success or have I been too scared to define my own? This brings us to a much older voice, one that still echoes in the lives of so many today. The Mass of Men Lead Lives of Quiet Desperation by Henry David Thoreau, a line written over 150 years ago. But somehow, it still feels like it was written yesterday. Because that's what quiet desperation looks like today. Smiling for the camera at a job you hate. Working 60 hours a week for things you don't care about. Building a perfect life, then lying awake wondering why it still doesn't feel like yours. We don't talk about it because on paper, everything looks fine. Because we're afraid that if we stop to ask the deeper questions, we might not like the answers. So maybe it's not just about building a better system. Maybe it's about building a life that's actually yours. A life that doesn't just function well, but feels right to live. But how do we even begin to make that shift, especially when everything around us says, fit in, keep up, don't fall behind? The truth is, there's only one way forward, and it doesn't involve waiting for someone to come save you. What does quiet desperation really look like in today's world? It doesn't scream. It doesn't cry out for help. It shows up in the way someone scrolls mindlessly through their phone, even when nothing feels interesting anymore. It's in the way they laugh just a little too loudly at work, just to prove they're okay. It's in that moment after the lights go out, when everything is still and their mind won't stop asking, is this really all there is? Let's talk about Linda. She's 34, works in digital marketing in Manhattan. Her LinkedIn is immaculate. Her Instagram is curated with golden hour photos from Bali, clean matcha mornings, yoga mats, and smiling brunches. She followed the script, graduated from a good school, got a good job, moved to the right city, made all the right moves. And yet every Sunday evening, her chest tightens, not because something's wrong, but because nothing feels right. There's no crisis, just an ache. Not loud enough to be an emergency, not soft enough to ignore. That's what Thoreau meant. Not dramatic failure, not chaos. Just a life that looks full but feels hollow. The danger of quiet desperation is that it hides in plain sight. You can have everything the world told you to chase and still feel like a stranger in your own skin. You can be admired by your peers and applauded by your family and still feel like you're living someone else's dream. And the worst part? You might never question it, because you're so good at performing happiness that even you start to believe it. Think about the culture we live in. We reward productivity, not presence. We praise ambition, not alignment. We teach people how to succeed before we ever ask them what success truly means to them. So it's no surprise that many of us wake up one day and realize we've climbed a ladder that was leaning against the wrong wall. But what's the alternative? To drop everything and run off to a cabin in the woods? Not exactly. This isn't about rejecting society or becoming a hermit. It's about something deeper, something harder. It's about taking radical responsibility for your own life. See, when you're quietly desperate, it's tempting to blame the world. Blame your job. Blame capitalism. Blame your parents. Blame expectations. And maybe those things did shape you. Maybe they boxed you in. But here's the shift. There's a difference between being shaped by something and letting it define you forever. You didn't choose how your story started, but you do get to choose what happens next. And that choice isn't about proving anything to anyone. It's about choosing presence over performance, direction over distraction, Truth over comfort. Linda eventually realized this. It wasn't a dramatic moment. No huge breakdown. No quitting her job and backpacking through Europe. It was subtle. One night, she came home from a networking event, took off her heels, and sat on the floor. No music, no noise, just her breath and the quiet hum of the fridge. She looked around her high-rise apartment and asked a question she'd never allowed herself to ask. If I stripped away the titles, the likes, the expectations, who would I be? And she didn't have an answer. But for the first time, she wanted to find out. That's how real change begins. Not always with action, sometimes with stillness. Not with fixing everything overnight, but with the courage to admit, I don't know who I am outside of what I've been performing, but I want to learn. And that's when the most difficult realization hits. No one else can do this for you. Not your therapist, not your partner, not your mentors, your books, your favorite influencers. They can guide you, encourage you, support you, but they can't walk the path for you. Because in the end, no matter how crowded the world feels, the journey back to yourself is one you must take alone. There's something sobering about that line from the Buddha. No one saves us but ourselves. No one can, and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path. It sounds simple, but the weight it carries is anything but. Because deep down, most of us are still waiting. Waiting for the perfect moment. Waiting for a sign. Waiting for someone to come and say, I see you. You're not crazy. Here's the path. Follow me. And when that doesn't happen, we start to wonder if we're lost. But maybe we're not lost. Maybe we're just hoping someone else will carry the burden of choosing for us. Because choosing is terrifying. Let's talk about Jaden. Jaden was 23 when he graduated with a degree in finance. First-generation college student. His parents were proud. His professors had high hopes. Everyone expected big things. But deep inside, Jaden felt off. Not broken, not depressed, just misaligned. He had spent years climbing a ladder, only to realize it wasn't leaning against anything he cared about. Still, how could he throw it all away? How could he look his parents in the eye and say, I don't want the life you sacrificed everything to give me? So he tried to make it work. Got a job at a bank, bought the suits, played the part, and every day it felt like playing a character in someone else's movie. Eventually, something cracked. Not in a dramatic meltdown, not in some big life crisis. It happened one morning, on the subway. A child was drawing with a crayon on the seat beside him. Just scribbles, no purpose, just joy. And Jaden felt a knot in his throat, not because of the child, but because of what it reminded him of. That once, he used to draw too. Not for a grade, not for a portfolio, just because he loved it. He got off the train 2 stops early that day, not because he had a plan, but because, for the first time, he was willing to admit, this isn't the life I want, and no one else can fix that but me. That's the beginning of the path. Not when you have the answers, but when you finally stop pretending that the questions don't exist. The world will keep handing you scripts. It will hand you blueprints for success, timelines for love, checklists for happiness. But none of those things will matter if they don't resonate with the person you're becoming. And becoming that person, no one can do it for you. Here's what makes this so hard. The moment you start walking your own path, you'll feel alone. Not because no one loves you, but because no one knows the path you're on. And they can't. Because it's yours. There's a reason we call it a path, not a shortcut. It takes time. It requires shedding identities that once kept you safe. It asks you to walk away from the applause of people who never really saw you. But in that quiet space, something else begins to rise. Not noise, but clarity. You begin to hear your own voice again. At first, it's shaky, then stronger, then unshakable. Walking the path doesn't mean rejecting help. It means recognizing that support is not substitution. No book, no coach, no podcast, no partner can walk it for you. They can walk with you, but the steps, yours alone. It's like hiking a trail through the fog. You might hear voices ahead of you or behind you, but where you place your foot next, that's your responsibility. And with every step you take, you learn something terrifying and beautiful. You were never as helpless as you thought. You were just waiting for permission to become who you already are. This is the shift. Not fixing yourself, but returning to yourself. Not seeking the way, but walking your own way with intention. And here's the paradox. The more you walk your own path, the less desperate you feel to prove anything. Because it's no longer about reaching some destination. It's about becoming someone who's finally walking in the right direction. You may still stumble. You may still doubt. But you'll know, deep down, that this time, it's you who's choosing. And in a world full of noise, confusion, and pressure to conform, sometimes that's the most powerful truth of all. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need a 5-year plan or a perfect morning routine. What you do need is honesty. Honesty to admit when something isn't working. Honesty to walk away from lives that look good but feel wrong. Honesty to stop blaming the world and start asking, what am I going to do with what I've been given? Because the path is yours. And even if it's foggy, uneven, or unfamiliar, it's still yours. And that's where freedom begins. Not in control, not in certainty, but in the quiet power of walking your own way, even when no one's clapping. So if you're feeling stuck, not broken, just misaligned, pause, breathe, then ask yourself, without shame or performance, if I stopped chasing approval, what kind of life would I start building today? If this video stirred something in you, share it with someone who might need it too. Drop a comment below. What truth have you been avoiding? Subscribe if you want more content that doesn't tell you who to be but reminds you to remember who you are. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for listening.